Okay, we are about time to get started with the post-lunch session. Just to remind you guys, we have two sessions now. One in which we have a master chef demonstration by Chef Sanjay Thakur. That's going to happen right now. And after that, we have presentation from Cozy Lab, my own lab, where my research interns will be presenting various tools that we have from our lab. And after which we'll have a tea break, followed by which we'll have a Ayurveda and nutrition session. So kindly settle down. The Master Chef demonstration session will be handled by Sanjay Thakur and his partners. Sanjay Thakur is a multi-award winning chef, a culinary mentor of the year 2019, and has been one of the first chef forager from India. And since then, he has dedicated his life for promoting indigenous herbs and plants worldwide. He is the first Indian to be semi-finalist of San Pellegrino Young Chef and two-time Bocuse d'Or, or known as the Culinary Olympic candidate for India at Asia Pacific. Last year, he has been awarded alongside Chef Sundarajan Guinness World Record for setting up world's highest restaurant at Triagoni, with a core message of promoting sustainable menus and trends in restaurant business that should be catering to utter importance. When it can be done at 18,000 feet, it can be done at normal grounds as well. That's what Chef Thakur believes, and may I invite him and his partners now to take over the stage and take us through the magical journey of what goes behind cooking, the science of emulsions. Chef Sanjay. Let's give a big round of applause.
For this opportunity, and with me, my colleagues, first of all, who helped me out with this preparing everything over here. Actually, it's not very easy to demonstrate science when it comes to practicals. It's easy to display it on the board, on the slides, but when bringing it live to all of you guys, this is quite complicated. And I'd love to thank my team members, Manjot, Arjun, and Raj. They did a great job. So starting with the lecture very quickly, because we only have 25 minutes and there's a lot to explain in this. I left the name up there, Upaskara. Anyone know what does that mean? It's in Sanskrit. It means spices. Yeah. So that's why I love to every project I've been involved into. Triogni was the last one. It was always about promoting our culture. Sanskrit is one of them when we talk about Ayurveda or when we talk about our dining techniques. So we started through that. So the lecture would contain of creating a dish with flavor pairing. I've been doing it. I've been trained in Melbourne with chefs who have been using very similar flavor matrix, which is going to come into the similar format called Flavor DB. So we have been doing and creating dishes according to the same pattern. The next topic we're going to touch on is understanding spices, and we have a case study on garam masala right over there, with the help of centrifuge and with help of stirrer as well, magnetic stirrer. Last, we're going to quickly touch on viscosity and emulsions, where we're going to talk about dal makhani and how does dal makhani look after changing its stages or losing its moisture content under the microscope. So you'll see how different it looks and how important it is to have a right viscosity or consistency of any sort of gravy or a dal we make. Okay, so starting on with the first slide over here. When we started long back ago, we had a misconception of understanding taste, where scientists said that taste is only the receptors belong to different parts of the tongue, which was again changed according to time. More of research came out, and then we had scientists telling that salty, sour, sweet, bitter, umami, fat is right through. You can taste it anywhere on your tongue. Right? So this all perception changed. And everything about food or tasting we know is not enough. Because this lecture today is not just for all of us here, but for the chefs, for the young chefs, it's very important. So that's why I want to keep it basic as well, so they get to know what we're talking about here, and they start adapting this mindset about cooking. So whatever happens when we eat anything, any particular dish, we are not eating it through the tongue. Right? We have those olfactory receptors, which is just above here. Right? So especially for the students, they don't know this factor because we have never been taught these things in hotel management colleges, which I think should have been the most prior topic to be discussed right in the first place. Only 20% of the work which is done by tongue when we are eating anything, and rest 80% comes from the olfactory. Right? Three of the major parts I would like to showcase to you guys, which is important as a chef to know, is frontal cortex, right over here, which helps in your decision and planning. Nucleus cumbus, which helps to create that desire. Chocolate khana. Chocolate is one of the most craved food on the planet. Do we know any reason why? Any reason behind it? Sugar and? Sugar and fat.
Texture.
Sugar and fat are the two components which are equally divided into it. And where does this craving get according to us? No idea? It came from the mother milk. Mother's milk was something which was equally divided into sugar and fat. And that's why this craving has gone through, right through each of us. And mostly you will see common, very common. The research has said before, there's over 98% of people who love having chocolate, if you have given it to them. Of course, with poverty, a lot of people can't afford it, but the one who can, and they love it. Last one is hippocampus, which helps in memories building up. So once you have a chocolate, you will remember it. Okay, it tastes like that. So this is something, these are the three parts. Of course, rest of your brain is also important, very much. But these are the three parts which, after researching a lot and going through a lot of articles, reading about it, I thought that these we can focus as students for now. Okay. Going into a quick experiment first, we're going to do a very quick experiment about the sensory part we were discussing, that if we are smelling something, how to prove that it's your nose, it's olfactory which is making a change, not what you're tasting. So what we did, we got a few essential oil. So who's going to try it? Will you? Please. Your nose, you don't have any cold for today?
Yeah, I don't like.
Sure. So let's see. So we got a lot of different flavors. We got banana here, we got coconut, we got mint, we got very much of a different flavor. Let's try pairing banana with a sandwich. And normally I do that blindfolded. We never disclose what we are serving to the guests, but let's do that. So you can grab any piece of any slice of a sandwich, and then we will have a. While having it, you have to just sniff it. Keep on sniffing it while. It tastes like banana, right? It's very surprising. I know it might be sounding very funny, but it's very surprising. It will taste like banana. So this proves that how much of a difference just by smelling a dish. Yes, thank you so much. Can make a change, right? And these are the things which, as a chef, we have to learn, that aromas and flavors are also developed through what we see and what we smell and what we feel. Okay. So this was one of the quick experiments we wanted to show. Of course, we can do it with you, all of you guys later on. Whosoever want to come and try, smell it, and have something to eat with it, we can definitely do it.
And it will feel like many more people.
Yeah, this is what I was actually wanting to do. Anyone who did, yes sir.
So this experience of that taste like banana, it is a shorter time of work?
Yes, it's as long as the flavor or the smell gonna stay in your nose, fragrance, okay, and it will continue. So it will keep on sending that message to your sensory bed. Oh. Sorry, I'm not very much into this scientific terminology.
Just I'm curious to know if some sort of smell is constantly exposed to the brain.
Yeah.
So it could be damaging also.
Yes, of course. If anything in excess is not good for your brain.
What
happens is, when you masticate food, your mouth temperature is 37 degrees. So there's a difference between aroma and aromatics.
No, I'm thinking point of a health. In thinking a lot of.
Bite the food, you are creating heat, friction, you are increasing the
Let
surface
him
area.
continue, I will discuss.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt this, but too much smell of something is not good.
It's not good, yes.
Because the brain has an inbuilt mechanism
Yes.
to nullify the existence of that stuff.
That's
Oh.
that's
You
true.
can live next to a fish market and not smell it, and your guests coming home will not be able to climb up your stairs.
Yes. That's very true. Yes. So yeah, people who are working in butchery, the whole day they are there. Right when we started working in butchery, first 2 days we couldn't stand there because our brain is denying that sense. It doesn't want to take that sense. So this is what then like sir said, it adapts.
It will also impact the decision making of the person in routine. Maybe after
Well, in the
coming
beginning
back
it
from
can.
the home.
In the beginning it can, but in the longer run, it would be very different to say that. It's very
It's
difficult
called
to say.
neuronal plasticity, one of the concept. If it is constantly exposed to some sort of smell, so
Yeah.
neuronal plasticity concept होता है. तो brains mapping ही change होता है.
Wait, that's what sir mentioned.
Very good.
Same thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So how to pair taste? This was one of the very exciting topics which Dr. Ganesh has been working on it as well, and a lot of chefs have done it. So we are dividing into two parts. One is complementary and one is blanching taste. So what is blanching taste? Basically, when we say salmon is too fatty. Salmon, have you tried, most of you? Yeah. When you try salmon is too fatty, what do we do to cut that fat into it? We add acid, sour. So if you see that blanching taste over there, fat and sour matches up. Fat and spicy as well, which is another blanching flavor, which is whenever we want to cut spiciness from a dish, we add a little bit of a lemon.
What is the reason of adding the horseradish sauce? You know, it's very bitter in it. Horseradish, that is
Yes.
like a of smoked salmon.
To salmon, yeah? Again, spicy and fat. Salmon is a fat.
Because I was wondering about the need of, how was this horseradish picked up? Why was this picked up for this?
So see, these ones there is a lot of flavor molecules pairing have been done to that, which we haven't studied yet. Personally,
Because nobody answered this question, that why there are so many different economics that could happen. Why horseradish?
horseradish. So this is the one. I will show you one of the charts. You will be very surprised. It comes through flavor metrics, and they have paired up a lot of weird things. You will see a lot of weird things have been paired up in that chart. We will come to it right now, very soon.
But sir,
So-
just to answer your question, it's said to have antibacterial, or because suppose if you have salmon raw, that's what I have heard.
That's what, like, sushi is also paired with
Yeah,
wasabi
with
because it
wasabi,
has
yes.
antibacterial properties.
That is more into
So
curing
that's
part.
science behind.
Yeah. Okay. So going on back to this topic very quickly, complementary tastes are the normal ones. So recently they have also discovered that there are two other tastes which has been joined the family, which is fat and spicy, which can be observed by your tongue receptors or your flavor receptors on your tongue. So these are the two things which have come into it. We can later on share these slides with you guys if you want to have a little bit read on it, because now with the time restriction, we're gonna skip on that. More of the main component flavors there: fruity, phenol, pungent, maillard, tempane, marine, and sour, and they do have their subcategorization under that. So these are the things which help us to make a dish into a perfect dish. We make this chart, which will come up very soon, and there are other flavors which goes into the secondary circle of that chart, and this chart looks like this. So now what sir was mentioning here, horseradish and smoked salmon, it's a very different component, two different flavors. Why they are put together? Most probably because they are coming on right on the top with a stronger pairing, which comes on the outer layer of the whole chart. So how this chart works, like I said, the prime aromas which stays in the center in the first lobe, the second aromas goes on the secondary lobe, and then complementary ingredients, whatever the chef can think of to pair with it. So when we were working with one of the chefs, Grant, he came to Melbourne to showcase how he designed dishes. Grant is one of the award-winning chefs, 3 Michelin star, very well reputed. So he was discussing with us how you can make a dish which goes very perfect. So what he told us, keep the center component of that dish. Over here we are taking as a sample yogurt, and we are making raita. So why raita has been made in such a manner, if it has to be described on that matter there. With raita, basic components we know. So what we will do, we'll write all the ingredients which goes around with yogurt as a starter. Let's say onion. onions, cucumber, right? Cumin, garlic. Garlic depends on a lot of things, right? If some people like it, some people doesn't like it. Now the second stage on this is how and what stage you want to put that garlic. Either you want it roasted, you want poached, you want dehydrated, what form you want. So that again it divides into 3 parts. Again we have to look into it, that which one goes best. So over here we choose roasted. Cumin, again. So spices, when we talk about spices, we know that spices are in 3 categories, right? Oil soluble, water soluble, and the third one is which are just used by heating up or dry roasting it lightly on the pan. So they go into 3 different categories. So cumin do fall in that as well, plus it falls in fat soluble content in that same region. So cumin, in this case we are dry roasting it a little bit. Cucumber as it is, we're going to use it as it is, but what main component, what can we enhance as a chef if we have to enhance? We will leave it into a same juice. When we cut the cucumber, apparently we lose lot of, we are damaging the cells inside, and we don't have to damage the cells. If you want to keep it retained as much as you can, so what we do, one part of cucumber we keep it as a salad diced, and other part of cucumber we make it a puree. We take the juice out and we let that cucumber rest in that juice, right? Just to keep that flavor intact in there. So we use that technique over there to keep our cucumbers as flavorful as we can. With onions, we had a very nice study over here. Onions, we kept them, we chopped them and we blinched them. Normally, when we do tadka, we know the term tadka, right? We blinch them or we chop them or we slice them, whatever way people do it in parts of India differently. So here we had done onions 2 types. One was chopped, and then we had a little bit of potatoes, we puree and we keep a starchy water to do this little experiment. We wanted to see in what sense does the oxidation will take place quicker. So this happened when we were chopping the onions very lightly. So we are not bruising them a lot, because once we bruise the onions a lot, it brings out a different flavor compound, which is not really very good to give that flavors. It just expires very quickly, right? So this is what happens when you make it a puree. Within 2 hours, it went into this color. So that's how quick the oxidation takes place in this particular experiment. And so it's so important, the way you chop your onions or the way you slice your onions for every typical type of curry. It depends how you want your curry to come out. So one of the reasons why I did that, because we never think this way. Why onions are better be sliced in the salad? Because you're just giving it a one rough slice, you're not damaging the cell much, and then it will not taste as much as it will taste if you put it blinched in the salad. This is the reason why you don't blinch onions and put it in the salad. So going back on this again the charts are there. These are the charts which we were following it. Another thing, astringent and metallic was added to the taste factor later. And do we know astringent? You know, it's a little buzz also. Rasila. Dryness and little buzz as well. They mention it as a buzz. According to some people, they are having, let's say, chili. Right? You touch the chili and that chili will give you that sensation. It's already sending some sensors to your brain, which is more into depth, which I don't, probably someone who into these things can explain us more in depth at why they do it. But the scientists, they wanted to add it into a flavor, one of the taste compound as well. Let's put it on the map. So this is why they put these 2 things in the map again to make it broader. With the more the taste components are there, it helps to broaden the circle for us. This is very important. Okay, this is one of the capsicum chart. Now capsicum and lemongrass is one of a very unusual pairing as well. If you see right on the top, lemongrass has been paired with capsicum on a stronger pairing, which hasn't been done a lot in a lot of recipes. So these are charts. They help us to, these charts have been available through Flavor Metrics online so far, and you guys can have a look, and it will really help you to to structure out, because these have been research done by a lot of chefs who have been backed by Oxford and Harvard. They are the ones who are backing them up, helping them do all this research. And we're looking forward that we also get someday into the same game, that we can come and research. Like we said, Indian spices play a lot of different roles in a different setting. Okay, about this the spices, I already spoke to you guys very quickly before, that fat soluble, water soluble, and heat proofed spices in 3 different categories. So that's how they work. So with that, there's not much to say. We had done an experiment here. What we did, we had tomato puree, basic tomato puree. We added 5 gram of powder form of masala and 10 gram of whole garam masala. And we left them for 2 hours in a sous vide bag. So now sous vide is what? It's controlled cooking basically. We're controlling the temperature. We're controlling the water bath into a certain temperature. We're leaving it into a sous vide bag. Why? Because we don't want any moisture to disappear from there. We want to keep all the essence in the bag so that we can get the exact amount whatever we're looking for. So apparently, sir was trying this while sir had a little bit of a sniff as well of these 3 temperatures. And 90 degree, we figured it out that it was one of the best out of the 3 temperatures to have those spices release their oils. So apparently, there should be a science about at what temperatures spices work the best, which has to be still researched, because a lot of after looking into a lot of different platforms, we cannot find it anywhere online which is available. And that's why we went to this type of particular experiment, and we wanted to see that how we can make a difference. If a curry is cooking constantly at 90 degrees, will it be different in a taste if it's cooked at 70 degrees? It should make difference. It should make difference. It's a common way. The ingredients will react. The tomatoes will react. The garlic will react.
The chefs, they have this rule that when they add the spices to the curry, they should add them into the oil.
Oil, yes, to bloom it. Yes.
And the indication is that when the oil comes to the top, so that is the indication. So they used to have those kind of thumb rules.
Yes.
So I think these are quite valid, acceptable.
Yes.
If you put those spices at the end, so the taste will.
It doesn't work. Yes. And the temperature also for that, they have given us a range now, 212 degrees to 480 or 450 degrees. You can't go over that, because now spices not going to give those essential oils, or they won't be there for your curry. And same way, 212 and over. But now we have to again look into the timings, that how long that oil of those spices can stay in that curry and can keep the consistency of their flavor aromas there. Okay, so again, spice blooming we already discussed now. Like sir said, straight away heat source, oil and spice. We leave that spice in the oil. Best way to bloom a spice is in the oil. So we did that experiment again, 212 degrees. We had 2 different components. We had pepper flakes or peppercorns, and then we had thyme. Why we left different, totally different ingredients? One was in a dry form, which is pepper flake, right? And one was thyme. Why we left there? To see this. So now, what is it over here? We left same temperature, but one in water and one in oil. And you can see, capsicum released from pepper in oil is a vast difference. You don't have to go into the technicality, but you see the difference? It's a big difference, right? So this easily proves that oil, of course, plays a major part in releasing any sort of aroma if taken at the right temperature. Okay, spices, basically we just categorize them a little bit, that water and oil soluble in different formats. So again, we can share this. This is also available online as well, which is not a big deal about this. Tomato puree experiment, we just spoke about it very quickly before. And we did a centrifuged, I forgot to tell you. So after cooking those spices in different temperature, we used centrifuged. We did about roughly 4,000, 5,000 RPM, the speed. What is centrifuge is just keep the hard residue at the bottom and the clear one, so we can have just the flavors out. We have to take those flavors out. So we just did that to see what is the difference in the taste in all these 3 temperatures we got. Okay. So, and it went out very well. 90 degrees was one of the most successful one we had over here. Now about viscosity. When we talk about polymers like xanthana, agar-agar, Other than Gorgam, I don't think so in Indian cooking we ever used much of the components, artificial polymers or polymers which are coming from outside to thicken up sauces or anything, because we naturally they were getting on the application of it, we reduce it down to bring to the consistency we want. So we never had to use it apparently. The same way, dal makhani was our study today. I'll show you a little bit later here what's happening here. They already had carbohydrates in dal makhani, in your lentils, right? 4 different sorts. The ratios differ, of course, lentil to lentil. So we already have those 4 different sort of carbohydrates in different sort of lentils. So I mean, it worked pretty much very well for dal makhani to. With the application of it, it gets thickened in that consistency which is required. Of course, it changes to recipe. But now again, can we get a consistency that you go to every restaurant, you get the same dal makhani? Can we do that? It's very hard. It's very hard, right? Basic example, what I was even telling my boys yesterday, that if you want to do, let's say, a viscosity test on dal makhani, right? Let's say this is a slant. Okay, this is a slant, and you pour your dal makhani from here to down there. Okay, so it will be, let's say we'll mark these 2 points, which will be your length. So now the dal makhani will start counting from here to here, the pouring of dal makhani, the time it takes, right? The time it takes, we're gonna measure that time, we're gonna take that length, and we will have a formula to calculate our viscosity. We'll calculate the viscosity. Now, why it's important? Why is it important? So every restaurant you go to, or you're educating your students to go in front and saying that, look, क्या different है यार? ये थोड़ा तुम्हारे बहुत रनी आ रही है और इधर ये नहीं आ रही, because क्या होता है? We are in a comfort zone where कुछ भी चलता है. Just डाल दो. But in this डाल दो sense, you guys are struggling. Students are struggling with this. Worldwide, how many chefs have 3 Michelin star restaurants? Indians. None, 0. I work for Etihad Airlines, right? We take Michelin inspectors throughout traveling. We take San Pellegrino inspectors who give ranking to the best restaurants and all. They fly with us. We always have this discussions with them. That what is the reason? They said there's no documentation. We can't go and we can say your dal is better or my dal is better because we don't know which dal is better. Like I salute to Dr. Ganesh when he said he is compiling the recipes from 2 different sources, but I believe both the sources will have same recipe on a different ingredient list or a margin. One will say 3 grams, one will say 5 grams. So as a science doesn't accept that. Science needs proper numbers. They don't need chal jayega, 2 gram or dal ho jayega. It doesn't work like that. And this is something which we have to take it very seriously as a chefs. Okay. So this is something which is all about. So this is how your dal makhani looks in different stages. So we have those 3 different stages. Why we left that over there? To see how moisture plays an important role when it evaporates. Due to the light, can we have the light for the last one? So they can see the finished product on your right hand side here. Yeah, this is right for everyone.
I want to ask about it.
Yeah.
Do we need Michelin star for Indian food?
Yes, this is a good question.
The part about Indian food is the diversity.
Yes.
Yes. If you want to take it to a protocol,
Yeah.
is that everybody should have only this.
Yeah.
Then when the taste unique, what does it do to the liking of the people? Because those are people we are going to feed and take.
Yes, of course. First of all, Michelin star have nothing to do with the comfort zone of the diners. We're gonna still serve them the same food, but we're gonna serve them the same food with some knowledge backed by it. We can't say कि तल्ला दलाल जी ने 5 ग्राम डाला है और इन्होंने 3 ग्राम क्यों डाला? We can't say that. There should be an answer. Abhi, what is happening is, because I go to a lot of universities, students question me that. Why don't we have an encyclopedia? Chef Akshay was mentioning it before, that where students can refer, okay, these are our mother sauces, this is makhani, this is coconut based sauce, this is kadai gravy. Why don't we have that live chain of command where we can refer to what we can refer to? Or इसी के basis पे Michelin is just an award to get working in a hard industry like kitchen where they're giving up 14-15 hours every single day. It feels very good when they reward you for something which you're doing. Nowadays, most of the awards are, sorry to say, they are manipulated. जिसकी PR team is stronger, they get the awards. But Michelin and the San Pellegrino, some of the lists are like this. They don't really go for that. Maybe they should or they don't, but we don't get into that. But normally, the chefs who have been awarded that, if you see their research, if you see their work, it's outstanding. And I think
If you know the chefs well, if the chefs know some food that they make it all the time,
Yeah.
the same manner, that's what the people
Expect.
rate them as.
Yes.
Then wouldn't they be following a protocol? I'm just curious
Yeah.
that.
yeah, you mean the inspectors who are checking them?
No, the person who is cooking
Yeah.
and is more popular
Yeah.
for that kind of cooking.
Yeah.
For example, Chef Gail's Dal Bukhara,
Hmm.
right? So if everybody connects to that this is Chef Gail's Dal Bukhara, then that means it is like a protocol, right?
Yes.
So then what is the problem with that protocol? For
This is what I'm saying.
sour or whatever.
Yeah, no, Michelin will come, they will appreciate that. If we have a science behind it and we can stand and we can prove
You have to
it.
explain the evidence.
Basically,
There
can be a variation, but the variation should be first
Should
of all
be-
sustained and then it should be reasonable.
Reasoning, yes. Why we are doing it, what is the science behind it, have you seen the science behind it, have we done an
So you
experimentation?
provide an evidence for that?
Yes.
Diversity cannot allow
Yeah,
chaos.
and then,
We are an organized chaos, that's what we say. India, we are an organized chaos. We have everything, but we are very well organized in that chaos. And this is what cooking is also about.
No, we are just ignoring the bookkeeping habit, giving the justification of maintaining
We are ready
diversity.
with the justification.
Yeah.
Even before the recipe comes out, we are ready with the
But
justification.
bookkeeping habit is the first rule for getting any experimentation, whether it is a cooking or anything else.
Anything, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I learned my way, I learned the hard way by working in the kitchens, which really made me cry.
Yeah.
And made me stand outside the kitchen without salary for 1 week. So this is how I learned. And I think, and it's important that we go by a certain set of guidance, which we can explain the young ones. Otherwise, they will be the one who will go out and make joke of themselves.
Yeah.
As basic as that. Okay, so emulsions, I mean, we talked about it a little bit already. Yogurt, like I mentioned over here, we did that experiment also. The flavor compound which I was talking about, onions, this is the one. When you break that wall, it creates the onion which we know, which we like to know in our curries. That's the corner one. This is as it is. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'm done with it. So, and what is this quick thingy here is Nitris cylinders in there. Yogurt, we wanted to create that dish with yogurt, right? The raita which we were talking about. So what we did with the raita is, okay, just difference, because mouthfeel is one of the components which was there on the textures, right? Which was there on the textures, mouthfeel. And in mouthfeel, what we can do to enhance that yogurt while making a raita in the restaurant business. Why I'm targeting restaurant and hotels, because it's their responsibility. कि अगर बाहर लोग पैसा दे रहे हैं, if they're going to a 5-star establishment and they're paying 1,000 rupees for a raita, it should be 1,000 worth a raita. It shouldn't be the same raita which you get in a dhaba,
Yes.
right? There should be we have more than 53 different types of tomatoes available in India. In hotels and restaurants, we are only using 2 different types. Only 2 different types. So what's the difference now when a dhaba guy is cutting a tomato for you, which is genetically modified? It's I think prototype 13 and 14 which we are using. It's not even a type of tomato which is legal in the seed format. In Gurgaon only they keep the samples, if I'm not wrong. So this is my question. That's where the science have to kick in. That's where people have to question that your salad is why different to a dhaba salad. What you're doing extra for us. You go and you do that research about the tomato. Bring a tomato which I never had it, and it's not like it's not available. It's here, but we are not just growing it, right? And these are the things which will solve the problems of sustainability as well. Because we only talk about sustainability in the lectures of sustainable karo, ye karo, but we don't do anything about sustainability. We just talk about it. And the first thing is basic ingredient tomato. Try to find another variety which is not being used. Let's get to the farmers, talk to them, why don't we start growing that, what is required to grow this, and let's come on to that. From 6,500 different varieties to India only have 53, and from 53 we use 2. So it's cutting down that short, right? So we can't sit and blame the government about all these chaos which is happening. With this, while we did that yogurt we add emitters to it just to get that mouthfeel into it, and it has been infused with roasted cumin and roasted garlic, and that's all. And we leave it in there, we add a little bit of cylinder of emitters to give that mouthfeel, and we serve it with your cucumbers which were soaked in cucumber juice just to have that extra flavor, and the jelly. I have seen a lot of kids nowadays, they are too fascinated about creating gels and creating everything. The most natural jelly which we have given by nature is tomato already inside the seeds. They are natural jelly, right, which we can serve. Of course, our tomato quality is different. We have an expensive tomato, or we have a tomato a prototype which hasn't been served before in India. So of course we can use that, and then we will serve it. Of course, we don't have fancy plates to show off here, but we'll just have a little bit into it. So it has been sitting for a while now because we had a lunch break. We'll add another one. And feel free to taste that how different does yogurt taste. We can do it with a lot of other things. I've done it with I created a makhani base, and I used that as a makhani base just to give that tingy flavor, we can call it. Here, leave some onions. It's just a basic example. I mean, we don't have to keep that recipe like it. It's not khana khazana going on here. It's just a basic approach that what can be done to take food to a little bit of a different level, backed by science, and have a little bit of knowledge behind it, not just copy from here and there and just put a recipe out there, which is a very common trend now and which is not right. I would say students to always go ahead and research about ingredients in depth and then come with any sort of improvements you want to do in your cuisine. That's pretty much it. Ganesh sir, I think that will be time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for giving us an engrossing presentation of what goes behind the cooking. And that's quite a lot of effort, by the way, that this team has put together to an extent that they have missed their lunch to make sure that everything is prepared well before the demonstration. So let's give a big round of applause for the dedication.